Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to finish off a piece of patchwork that you've made into this lovely lacy frilly circular placemat. So the first thing, you'll already have ideally done your patchwork, and stay tuned to tomorrow's video where I'll be showing you how to do hexagons without papers. Well, the first thing that I'm doing here is actually basting my project with scrap embroidery thread. So I basted it onto wadding, couldn't think of the words then, and then you can quilt it in any type of pattern that you like. I guess that depends on what shapes you've used. I just used 2 strands of DMC embroidery threads here, and I just go around each of the outlines of the flowers, and I haven't got the backing on at this point, it's just the patchwork and the wadding. And then when you've done all of your quilting, you can just remove your basting stitches because you don't knot those at either end, and the thread basting is just an alternative to pins or spray. And that is how my finished quilting looked. I decided for once to use a contrasting thread, and I'm really pleased that I did. I love how the stitches stand out. So to turn it into a circle, find yourself a suitable object to trace around. Mine was this pasta bowl, and I've just used a friction pen. It doesn't really matter what type of pen you use because it won't be visible anyway, but I prefer the safety of using an erasable pen. And then you're going to go over to the sewing machine and sew along that line that you've just drawn, and what that will do is it will secure any of your stitches in place, because you are going to need to cut some of the hexagons away and you don't want your threads splitting if you've cut any of your seams. So just go around with an ordinary stitch on your sewing machine and you'll be able to see that front and back. I've decided on this poly cotton for my backing just because I have quite a bit of it and I think it matches quite nicely. And then it's time to pull out the treasures of the lace box. I've collected these over many years, usually from the Birmingham rag market. You can buy it fairly inexpensively, or at least you used to. I haven't been for a few years. I was looking for quite a wide frilly lace, and there was 2 contenders. I had this dusty pink, but I thought the lace was perhaps a little bit too wide, but it is exactly what I wanted. And I liked that it was already gathered, so I didn't have to gather it myself. But then there was also this just off-white lace that I really liked. It had 2 layers of lace, and that was the winner because it was the size that I had in mind. And again, I've decided to base this with thread. This is just waste embroidery thread. You know, when you've split the strands and you don't use all of the 6 strands, I just keep that type of embroidery thread in a little container there, and I just use it for basting. Now you want to baste your lace inwards, the opposite way to how it's going to lay, because you're going to flip this inside out. So the easiest way I found was to check your needle and poke it through directly on the line that you've just stitched, and pull your basting thread through, and you'll stay bang on the line that way. So every stitch you're essentially checking that you're on the line, going backwards and forwards, and the basting stitch keeps it really nice and secure. So this is what it looks like. My only advice would be is to just trim those tails that are hanging there of the basting stitches, because they actually came through at the end. You'll see that, but it was easily remedied. So there we have that. So now you're going to put your lining fabric right sides together, and I'm going to pin this in place. I'm actually pinning both inside of the circle and outside because you need to keep it flush, and this is why having the wadding extending past the circle is really helpful. and you take it back over to the sewing machine. I had the wadding side up so I could see exactly where I needed to sew, and I sewed just very slightly inside of the previous stitching line, and then I trimmed it all down. It might be good at this point to put notches in the outside of the circle just so it turns a little bit easier and lays flatter, but I didn't have a problem not doing any notches. So there you can see the tails of my basting threads, but they're easily just snipped off. They was quite bright in colour, so I could see where there was. And now I just need to close that hole up with a ladder stitch. It might be easy if you actually pin this area, just because I left about a 4 to 5 inch gap. I forgot to say that earlier, when you're at the sewing machine you don't sew all the way around, you leave a gap at the sewing machine. And just go backwards and forwards with the ladder stitch until you've completely closed that hole up. And when you come to the end of where you need to be, I like to just do a double knot and then bury the tail of the thread just inside of the, I guess, placemat. One other thing, an idea for this is you could actually add stuffing at this point, like toy stuffing, and turn it into a really cute decorative cushion. I think that would be really nice. And then you want to give everything a really good press so that those bulky seams actually lay nice and flat. You could choose to quilt it at this stage rather than quilting it at the beginning, but I like that the back is completely, you know, untouched and it hides everything. I think that's a really nice effect. So once you've done that, you are all complete. This would be really nice just with a little ornament on it and just as a little bit of display. You could choose to top stitch all around those layers, but again I quite like it quite dimensional at the edges. So I really hope you've enjoyed this quick tutorial.